you can't just blindly go to market. You have to go to market and understand how people find products and services like you. And they listen to others, they listen to podcasts, they read blogs, they get on email lists, they watch YouTube, they're on social media. That's how we buy. We've talked about how marketers can defend the value of unattributable actions, podcasts, organic, social. As CEO, how do you talk about justifying those actions? And I think, how do you talk about justifying those actions with board members, investors, whoever? Who wants to take that one? I think it's a great question, because I've seen it all from each of your companies. You all believe in doing things that are not supremely measurable. How do you talk about those with other people?
You put a marketer on your board.
Who's your marketer? Who's the marketer on your board?
Sue Bostrom. She was a CMO at Cisco, and one of the most incredible board members out there. Highly recommended.
But like even more tactical than that, I mean, that's a badass way to do it. But if you think about where the team is spending their time, how do you have the conversation? Like, because it's a grind, right? You got to hit the number every month, every quarter. There's something happening. How do you make how do you make it okay for the team to spend 30% of their time doing on something that's not driving pipeline?
Yeah, let me take a quick shot and I'll pass it over to David. So I think it was you and Kyle who got into a conversation on LinkedIn that was really powerful about, you can spend money on LinkedIn ads and drive a ton of people, but it will never be better than your natural traffic, than the people who are coming to your website, coming to our events, or coming to your podcast, or coming to this thing to really learn about you. So if you don't make these things interesting, your cost of customer acquisition is just going to continue to go up, because people will forget about the ad. And guess what? The traffic that you're driving from LinkedIn is going to go away. And the only people that wins in LinkedIn ads is LinkedIn. So this is all, the hard thing about marketing is that it's hard to attribute because it happens in the future. So you do a podcast right now and people will remember what Gil said or what David said. And they might, they will act on it a few months later. So it's completely unattributable, but you earn a spot in somebody's head. You know what I mean? Like in the whole category creation mental model, you live somewhere now. And unless you're doing that over and over, you're always going to be paying for those LinkedIn ads. So it's something that you have to sort of fundamentally believe that happens in the future. And that's the hard thing about marketing, is that if you don't have somebody who gets that, then you're back to tactical shit on LinkedIn.
One of the things that we're experiencing here is the short and long-term goals. Like just what you said, in the short term can even be the quarter or 2 quarters. You have to continue that demand machine. You have to have I like to reverse engineer the revenue goals to pipeline to everything with stage 2 and stage 3 to make sure that we have that going so the business keeps going. But like Manny said, those ads, the traffic that you get, the organic traffic because of content and brand, converts so much better. The CAC is lower. Like everything is so economical and healthy about people that like your brand and come to your website because of that versus anything else. And so in order to make that happen, you have to invest in long-term initiatives, content that might convert a year later, or a community that might help you create a category, but there is no immediate impact. So it's still possibly measurable, but it's just not short-term measurable.
What do you say, David?
We still on the question about the board. For me, it's just like, in the early days in convincing the board in terms of how important marketing was, we did what we did internally, which is to tell stories and to tell stories about which they understood, about how saturated the market was, and that we were at a different point in the cycle, and that we needed to be able to stand out. And so that we were going to take an unconventional approach to marketing, one that was really hard to measure. And but we thought that here were the signals or the guardrails that we had, and if these things were going to pay off, they would look like this. And so we convinced some of that, and I think we had a board that was, again, this was very, very early days, even pre-product, who were very supportive of that and kind of understood it because they came from this world where they were seeing hundreds and thousands of companies emerging. And so they got that. But it was really storytelling and really applying that to how they think about the world, their worldview, and because of that, it made sense to them to make that move.
I think that's important because I think in all of your cases, like that is embedded in the company strategy, right? Like you can't just blindly go to market. You have to go to market and understand how people find products and services like you. And they listen to they listen to others, they listen to podcasts, they read blogs, they get on email lists, they watch YouTube, they're on social media. That's how we buy. And like the point that I made in my initial post is like most companies on this session today, less than 30% of your revenue is probably coming from paid marketing, right? And so that's not necessarily a negative thing. It just means like, why don't we spend so much time talking about the other 70%?
Yeah. One of the things that is important to remember is that for all the new, so we're all here in some kind of new category, right? Like we took something that was in the past and we're creating something new. Our main holdup for growth, our main growth limiter is education of the market. All our TAMs are huge. You all got venture capital, so we all know that our TAMs are big. The addressable one that is going to show up and buy something is the one that we educated a year ago. You see what I mean? So if you're not constantly educated ahead of where your number needs to be, you're going to be screwed. It's going to show up in revenue, and that's a mental model you have to, like, everybody has to just like buy in to be in this business.
The other thing that happens, I know this is shocking for people in B2B, but people will tell you. They will tell you where they heard you from. We would joke in the early days that it was an internal joke at Drift about how are we going to justify the ROI of seeking wisdom. And then we got all these screenshots of like, head of marketing at some enterprise company we're trying to sell to, who's like, I love the podcast, I'm a huge fan of DC. Like, and we'd screenshot those and send them around to the company and say like, that's how we're going to justify it. And I think that's the stuff. One of the most interesting insights is, there's what you think happens from a direct response marketing standpoint. And then when you actually talk to the sales team, oh, they heard you on that podcast. They heard you on that.